Well, hello and welcome on into this week's episode of Around the World in 80 Stays. I'm your host, Sean Keene, and I'm here today with Leila Assadi. As always, we're going to let Leila introduce a little bit about herself.
Hi, my name's Leila Assadi. I'm a junior at the University of Iowa studying economics and political science with certificates in political risk analysis and international business on the pre-law track. A little bit of a mouthful there. And then outside of that, I'm involved in ethics both at the University of Iowa, international buddies with TIPI. I'm also a peer mentor for TIPI, and I work in TIPI global offices as a study abroad outreach assistant. And I recently got back from South Korea doing the Korea University Exchange in spring 2025.
And that's the big stuff right there. So talk to us about your exchange in Korea. First and foremost, I am always curious, how did people find their study abroad program? What drew you to Korea?
So I always knew I wanted to study abroad as just an experience that I knew I would enjoy. I love traveling and I love learning, and I knew study abroad is something that can combine those two things really well. So right off the bat from freshman year, I worked a lot with my academic advisor to explore study abroad options, and we kind of settled down on Korea University or another program in North England that I didn't end up choosing just because I thought Seoul would be a lot different from my experience at Iowa, different language, culture, and whatnot, and chose Korea University, and I had an amazing time. So it was definitely the right choice to make.
Was the application process difficult at all? Were there any requirements, special or not, that you had to go through that may have been different from other programs? What was the application process like?
Yeah, so I think something unique with the program that I chose is that rather than being through a third party like IES or CIE, I did a direct exchange. So there wasn't like a middleman who was able to help me with the application or registering for classes and whatnot, but it was just me applying to Iowa for my study abroad program and then applying directly to Korea University as an exchange student. So that's what that application process was like, and that's what all direct exchanges are like. In my opinion, I didn't think it was too much work. I just didn't have a program officer or somebody who would be able to help me with almost 24/7 support during the process, but I had my academic advisor and my study abroad advisor, so even without something that SIT or another program would provide, I didn't think it was too difficult or any extra work in the application process.
It's good to know that you at least had the study abroad department working with you on this one, because I think a lot of people, if they heard direct exchange and then you just said, I didn't have anyone helping out, you're not totally alone. Mm-hmm. So direct exchanging is a possibility. And now I know this about your program because we've talked about this before, but what was it like having your program be kind of off the normal timeline? Because you did not go on a normal semester timeline with our schools. What was that like?
Yeah, so just for some background, the way Korea's education system is set up is that their semesters are flipped. So I actually went what would have been Iowa's second semester, but it was Korea's first semester of their academic year. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was one of the differences. And then their semesters also start about a month to 6 weeks later than Iowa's does. So after Iowa got done in December with fall of 24, I just stayed home. I worked, I saved money, spent time with my family, and didn't end up leaving for Korea until mid-February, and then actually started classes in the first week of March. So then on the flip side, when Iowa got done in May with classes, I was still taking classes until the end of June.
And then you come back here and have, 6 weeks of summer?
Yeah, so I actually ended up staying in Asia and doing some Southeast Asia travel. So I came back about 3 weeks before Iowa classes started. So I came back, got used to the time zone change, and then really hit the ground running in Iowa City.
Right back at it like you never left. Well, We'll get into your South Asia travels and stuff like that. So you go to Seoul. You wanted to choose Seoul because it was definitely out of the ordinary. And Seoul's a big place. Seoul is an important place. Seoul is a lot all at once. What was it like living and being in Seoul? What were your perceptions of Seoul?
Before going, I just for some more background, I know a bit about Korean culture. One of my best friends, her mom is from Korea, and she spent a few years in Korea. So through her, I was able to learn about the food and all that and whatnot. And then just in going to Korea, I wanted to learn through TV shows, through dramas, through YouTube videos about other people's experiences. Just again, how I was doing the direct exchange and I didn't have other people in the program with me or like the support that another program would have given. I wanted to do as much as I could personally so that when I went, I didn't feel like I was going to be in over my head or I was not going to fit in or be able to adapt well.
So actually living there, though, how did your adaptation change over time? Because I assume that that would be a lot to have to take in all at once. Your mid-semester, or at least in our terms, you're kind of off cycle with everything. What did that feel like? How quickly did you have to adapt? And then how were you feeling by the end of it?
I think something that helped me adapt very quickly is that I didn't live on campus on a dorm. I didn't get one in my application process, so I ended up living, it's called a Goshiwon. It's kind of like a private company that have dorms for students. So I lived off campus about 15 minutes away from Korea University. And I think living alone and off campus kind of forced me to learn the public transportation system quicker, find restaurants and grocery stores near me, and just get more involved in my neighborhood and like local community than if I had been in the dorm and just living on campus would have provided me with. Mm-hmm.
Living in Seoul and big city, and you're on your own with the dorms and stuff like that, how was it navigating public transit? How was it finding groceries, your little niches and areas to keep you just living and going? Because many people studying abroad, and that's just a phrase that you're going to hear me a lot saying, many people studying abroad or wanting to study abroad have worries about, how do I navigate public transit, especially in a place that doesn't, at least at face value, speak the language, or how am I going to work in grocery stores or find basic amenities? What was that like for you?
So again, that was a lot of the preparation I did before I went. I watched a lot of YouTube videos or read blogs to know important apps to have. So like, for example, Google Maps isn't used as much. They have their own mapping system. It's called Naver Maps. And that's what people use. Like if you're like, oh, send me the link or send me the address, they'll do the Naver one. So just having that really helped in me like talking with people and being able to travel. And then I just kind of jumped in head first with public transportation. I wanted to spend a lot of time traveling around Seoul before the semester started for 2 weeks. So day one I got on the subway and just hoped I got off on the right stop. And it was a little bit of trial and error for those first few days. But again, just because I was living off campus and didn't know anybody kind of before the school year started, it really forced me to have that independence in figuring the system out.
So you being alone, coming on direct exchange, it was probably very intimidating, I would assume. And you're being in classes with Korean students too, maybe other exchange students. How did you find your people? Who were your people?
So I, again, got very lucky with this. Before I went abroad, somebody who wasn't me and had the foresight to do this sent a mass email to people who were studying abroad that semester and said, hey, we want to make an Instagram group chat. So if you want, like, drop your handle and we'll add you to it. And I got added to that. So then when we actually all got to Seoul, even though we were arriving at different times, people would just say, we're grabbing lunch here. We're going to go shopping here. Like, if you want to come and you're in Korea, just come join us. So within the first week, I met one of my closest friends who I'm still friends with today and who I became really close with in Korea. I met her, I think, my 4th day in Korea, and then just like through her, met a lot of other people. And then once the school year started, starting to meet people who were in my exchange group, and then also my classes.
And the classes too. Talk about the classes, talk about not only what you took, but also the environment which you took them.
So I only ended up taking 4 classes because I wanted a bit of a lighter schedule to be able to explore Korea more and then not have to worry about homework and exams and stuff like that. So I took 2 classes for my business major. I took managerial accounting and marketing strategy. And then I took 2 elective classes, just ones that I was interested in and would be something unique to take in Korea. So I took media and gender and global Korean history.
What was it like actually being in those classes? Were they different comparatively to Iowa ones in terms of style, in terms of grading, in terms of what was required of you? What did that look like?
Well, we're in midterm season right now, so I guess I can speak on that for in Korea. It was quite different in the fact that they only have 1 week of midterms and 1 finals week, and it's for the entire campus. So you have 2 exams for every class, and it'll be after the first 8 weeks, and then 1 again at week 16. And those are the only 2 exams that impact your grade. And then in a class-by-class basis, it would just vary on if you would have quizzes, if you would have group assignments, homework, essays, stuff like that. But for the most part, the bulk of the grade was on 1 midterm and 1 final, which I think just added a lot more stress to those weeks, where at Iowa you could have 3 or 4 midterms for a class and you won't necessarily have a cumulative final.
I'm pretty sure my brother had a midterm like 2 weeks ago for one of his classes here. But what you're saying is the system there is really kind of make or break when it comes to those exams. Did you feel any pressure coming with the make or break? Or do you think, no, I got this. I'll be a little bit more lenient because I'm an exchange student?
I didn't have that leniency mindset, but something that was nice going into study abroad and just something that Iowa provides in general is that students can take classes pass-fail. So that takes a big hump of pressure off of the grades aspects of studying abroad.
C's are getting degrees over there.
They are, and you'll get a P for Iowa, so it doesn't even matter if it's the C, but taking everything pass-fail definitely helped me in, I think, being able to learn more, because I wasn't going to be so worried about having my one midterm and one final. I just knew I needed to pay attention in class and perform well enough to be able to pass, and then the credit would come back to Iowa. So I definitely think that helped take some of that pressure off.
Korea University, I'm assuming, is a major university within Seoul. What was it like being involved? What was the campus life like? Did you notice any big similarities to what it was like at Iowa? Did you notice any big differences? Talk about campus life and just being around in Korea University.
So I guess this is a little fun fact I can share about Korea University. It's one of the top 3 universities in Korea, and those 3 universities are called SKY. It stands for Seoul National University, Korea University, and Yonsei University.
Perfect.
So I was at the K in SKY. And just being one of the top universities, it does have a lot of high-performing and high-achieving students. And I think you can definitely tell, like, in their libraries and in their study rooms and whatnot, that people take their academics very seriously. But then at the same time, off campus and, like, outside of that academic setting, like, it was the same as Iowa, where you'll see friends hanging out in coffee shops, people hanging out in the streets around town, going to restaurants, going to cafes and whatnot. So I think there was that little bit of difference with how much they would study or how much they would put into the academics. But I think, at the core of it, they're also just university students who want to have a good time and have a good college experience with their friends.
What I'm hearing you say is they like to party like us, but they're way more studious than we are.
I think they party harder than Iowans.
Hey man, work harder, play harder. What was your go-to, or what were some of the go-to spots for you and the crew whenever you were done studying, done with your schoolwork, when you just needed a place to hang out in between things?
I really liked Korean food, so something my friends and I would do is go to restaurants, especially just around Korea University. It was in a really nice, not super busy area as much as you would expect in like downtown Seoul or another district of Seoul. So my friends and I would go to restaurants and eat a lot and eat very well. I think one of my favorite foods it's called solangtang. It's like oxbone soup, so it has beef, rice, noodles. I ate that 2 or 3 times a week just near campus. We would do Korean barbecue, of course.
Oh, yes. That sounds amazing.
Something else my friends and I would do around Korea University, just Seoul, is go to Norabang, which is a karaoke room. And we would just go and sing karaoke for an hour or 2, however long we rented it. We would go to photo booths. We would go shopping. We would just do anything. And even if we never left the area around Korea University, we could have done all of that. So it was really nice just having so much to do in a little space, but then also having the freedom to explore larger Seoul or other areas outside of where we were at school.
So I want to back you up on the food thing just a little bit, because I do like to ask about food, and you did answer that question, but that's okay. Oxbone? ? Did you willingly get that? Because I used to work at a Jamaican joint when I was living in Missouri, and we served oxtail. And oxtail is, in my opinion, something that you don't just ask for outright. You kind of have to like be given it, and then you figure out, this is actually pretty awesome. It was kind of chewy, but oxtail's really, really good. Did you willingly try this or choose this ox bone soup, or did someone give it to you? It's like, yo, you got to try this, and then it became your new favorite thing?
So I'm really adventurous with food. So anytime I was in Korea going to a restaurant, either with my friends or just one that was recommended to me by one of like my Korean friends, I would try anything because I love food and I like, trying what they would recommend. And I think the oxbone name is it's a misconception, because it's not the actual bone. They just boil the broth, boil water with the bones in it, and then it just gives the broth some of like the beef flavor. So I think it's a misconception with the name. But I ended up going to the restaurant a first time with my friend, and then after that, I would either go alone or I'd go with anyone who wanted to go. But I ate there. I was a familiar face at this restaurant.
They were like, oh man, get the ox ready. Leila's coming.
Yes.
Well, I would imagine ox is just a bigger cow, right? So I would imagine it probably doesn't taste too different. You said Korean, or you went to karaoke a bunch and you did that. All of the hours of listening to BTS and things like that has finally led you to this moment.
Yes.
What was, because Korean culture here obviously it's a pretty big deal. It is a sizable niche within American pop culture. How did your original perception of like Korean culture here, how did that like change, or did it fit with a lot of what was going on in Seoul, or what was the Korean culture like? Small K Korean culture, not big K Korean culture.
I think that a lot of things that people think about when they think of Korea are true to some extent, especially when you think of like K-beauty, Korean makeup, or Korean music. I mean, anywhere you go, they would have a lot of really famous K-pop artists, K-pop music playing. And then people there just take a lot of pride in their self-expression and self-appearance. So like Korean beauty is huge. There's this chain called Olive Young, and I think there was an Olive Young. If you walked 5 minutes, you'd be at a new one. They were everywhere.
So it's like the subway of Seoul. You walk 5 minutes and there's a subway, and then you turn the corner and there's another subway.
And yeah, it was Olive Young, and you would get any makeup, skincare, hair products, any other beauty product you can think of would be at Olive Young. And it was everywhere. I think the largest one was maybe 5 levels or something like that. And I went to it. But yeah, there's clothing shops everywhere. A lot of makeup stores or places for you to get professional, like your hair done, your makeup done, and get professional photos taken. And I think people think of that when they think of Korea. And like to an extent, it's very true that people like really have that care aspect with their like Korean beauty, makeup, whatever.
When you were going around, did you happen to catch any K-pop stars or anything like that?
I saw a K-pop idol once in public. I went to a concert, but I'm not going to count that because I paid to be there. But yeah, one time I was walking around and I was lost because I was supposed to be meeting some friends somewhere else. And I looked up and there was a black van that had the window rolled down, and it was an idol that I recognized. But again, I was lost, so I didn't even like register. I was more worried about like finding my friends and where I was supposed to be than like the car that went by with the idol in the window.
See, I'm not huge on watching K-dramas or anything like that, but in my experience with at least American television shows and stuff, that sounds like a real meet cute kind of moment from the start of one of those shows. You're lost and you're looking like, here's this idol person. That's super funny. What was the concert like, though, just being able to go to a K-pop concert or a K whatever music concert in Korea?
It was so amazing. I ended up going to 2 concerts while I was there. I saw Coldplay for Music of the Spheres, which was amazing.
This was pre the concert controversy, right? With the
Yes.
scandal. Okay.
No scandals on my big screen. Nothing happened there. But yeah, it was amazing. And I really like Korean concert etiquette and culture. I think in the US it's a bit more chaotic with people like rushing in and kind of like being really loud or talking or cheering while the artist is talking. But in Korea, there's kind of a understanding that if the artist is talking, they'll wait to clap until after they're done, like with their sentence or with whatever they're saying. So you kind of get to actually listen to what the artist is saying and understand more. And I think that kind of helps them connect with the audience a bit more. So I really appreciated that. And then I saw J-Hope, who is a member of BTS, my favorite member. And yeah, also incredibly amazing. And that was a little bit more unique of an experience because Coldplay was speaking English while I was there, so I was able to understand everything. But then at J-Hope, he wasn't, and they didn't have like an English translator. So like a lot of, during his talks, I would sometimes go on Twitter to see people live translating what he was saying. And then I was sitting next to these 2 girls who didn't know each other, but became friends at the concert.
Oh, wow.
And just hearing them talk about J-Hope, with my limited Korean, I could understand some of what they were talking about in regards to him, and it made me giggle a little bit.
That's super funny, and that you had to go to Twitter to live translate everything. Maybe that's just part of the experience. I remember I traveled to Uruguay when I was studying in Chile, and I went to a play. And I thought, oh, yeah, I know Spanish or know mostly Spanish. I'll be able to understand this. And they were performing the play in what is the equivalent of Shakespearean English in Spanish. So I sat up there and was like, I understand none of this. And they were very big on like no phones, no nothing, but I had to like pocket it on the side and just see if it could live translate because I paid money for this. I want to make sure I know what these people are saying. So that's a funny experience for sure. So your experience in the concert is the etiquette is somewhere between the stiffness of being in like a recital and then just the absolute mosh pitness that comes with American concerts. I'm more of kind of like a chill guy when it comes to concerts, so I think maybe I'd like to get in on the Korean concert scene a little bit. And you were talking about your limited Korean. Seoul, I am assuming, has a pretty good English base to it post-Korean War. It's a very international city. But what was your experience like either speaking, learning, picking up Korean, things like that? How did that help you at all? Did you use it at all? Did it kind of inform your experience?
Yeah, before going to Korea, I really wanted to have at least the basics down so I'd be able to introduce myself, say I can't speak Korean well, explain like if I was trying to go somewhere like
Where's the bathroom?
where's the bathroom? Can I have water? Like where's the location of something?
Check, please.
Yes. So I did learn the basics, and then just getting there, I made friends with some people who either spoke Korean fluently or were Korean students, and they would give me impromptu lessons while we were in public, like, Leila, this is how you say, like, can we split the bill? Now go say it. So just like throwing me in, but then it definitely helped me to be in those situations to learn how to speak and then do it. If I wasn't with them, I'd still be able to do it like by myself or have some level of language capability. And I just think that definitely helps. They don't expect you to be perfect at the language or speak it 100% with no mistakes, but I think people can see when you try to put in an effort to speak their language, even if it's just thank you. And I think it's something that they appreciate. So I definitely tried to do, if I was at a restaurant, if I was at a grocery store, if I was shopping for makeup at Olive Young, I would try to only use Korean with the basics that I knew. So then, I could connect more with them, or they would, kind of have that, I don't know, appreciation for me, like trying to speak their language.
So you said they're pretty positive and responsive to you trying to speak Korean.
Yes.
That's nice to know, too, because there are some places, definitely not going to name any names, but we all know. But there's some places where I think people are a little bit intimidated to try and learn the language because then there might be this perceived embarrassment of both the person you're speaking it to and of yourself. But it's good to know that they were appreciative of it, and then you had people maybe pushing you in to doing these situations, and I'm sure that helped inform and make your experience a lot better because of it. Have you retained any of your Korean?
A bit. I actually just started doing tippy buddies, and my buddy is coincidentally from South Korea.
Oh, wow.
So I was, running through some of the phrases that I still have in my repertoire.
Let me give to you everything that I know that probably is not relevant to anything we're about to talk about, but those are fun things that you get to do sometimes. So we talked about Seoul, and we talked about being in school and going around the city. And did you go outside of Seoul at all?
I went out of Seoul quite a bit, just to different cities, both around Seoul and then to the opposite side of the country. Their public transportation is great, so I could hop on a train and get to the other side of the country in 3 hours and then be in a completely new city. So I would do either day trips if it was closer to Seoul, or I'd do weekend trips with some of my friends to other cities.
And what was it like traveling outside of Seoul? How did you see Korea change?
I think that Seoul is probably the most Western city in South Korea, just kind of like you said earlier, with that Western influence and how popular it is growing as an international city. I think when you get out of Seoul to other cities like Busan or Daegu, Jeju Island, you kind of have more of an idea of what a non-Western Korean city looks like. I went to Busan twice, and I think that was definitely clear. There's just a bit less English spoken. There's still restaurants and signs and everything that has the English, but I think there having Korean language capabilities definitely was more helpful. And it was just a cool experience to see there's regional dialects, and even though everyone will speak like Seoul Korean or like standard Korean, you could still hear like the accents or the dialects, which was really cool to see outside of Seoul.
Was there anything maybe regionally, again, got to go back to food because I like food. Was there anything regional? Was there anything maybe customs-wise, food-wise, clothing that really stood out in comparison to the greater kind of Seoul area?
I'll say when I went to Jeju Island or Busan, which is a city right on the coast in the south of Korea, their seafood was amazing. I went to a number of seafood markets. I tried crab, fish, shrimp, anything that they would have, and the seafood was amazing. And I think just being right on the water definitely helps with that.
What was your experience eating kind of non-Seoulese Korean food? Because you said you like Korean food. I'm a big fan of Korean food. Obviously, I know here it's pretty Americanized, but other than just eating from the seafood market and things like that, what were the Korean meals outside of Seoul like?
I think there's a lot of similarities with them, actually. Like kimchi is a really big staple in Korea for wherever you are in the country. So even when I went to the south or I went to an island, they still had kimchi everywhere. And a lot of like vegetables, fermented vegetables. So yeah, for the most part, I think a lot of the food was really similar. Korean barbecue, ate it in every city I went to and enjoyed it in every city I went to. So I think even with the different city, like there definitely are different regions or different dishes that each region will specialize in. But for the most part, they still have a lot of like standard items no matter where you are.
Man, you talking about Korean barbecue, that just makes me so jealous. You got to eat it on the regular. I love Korean barbecue. So when you were traveling outside of Seoul and you said you went to different places around the country, what was your favorite place or maybe the most impactful place for you that you went to outside of Seoul, but still within Korea?
I really enjoyed Busan. I went twice. So I went in March when two of my friends from Iowa came to visit over Iowa's spring break.
We love a good crossover episode.
Yes, and I had an amazing time with them for a week. And we spent 2 days in Busan. And then when the weather got a little better in late April, early May, I went again with some of my exchange friends and also had a really good time. A little bit better weather. But there's just a lot of really cool architecture and history in the city. Not to give a history lesson, but like during Korea's like
Please, by all means, give a history lesson.
like during Korea's like Three Kingdom period, centuries and centuries ago, Busan was it wasn't called Busan, but it was one of the Three Kingdoms. So there's a lot of history and old architecture there and in the areas surrounding Busan as well. So it's just really cool to go and see some of the history and architecture that's less famous than what Seoul has just because Busan's a little less traveled to, but nonetheless, like also impactful and important history.
I saw this, and you know, if you go to Leila's Instagram, you can see this, but you were dressing a lot in traditional Korean clothing, and you were at these beautiful sites with Korean clothing. And my question is, how did you manage to score such beautiful traditional Korean clothing while you were at these beautiful historical sites?
Yeah, so something not just in Korea, but in the Asia travel I did after as well, that's I think becoming increasingly popular is clothing rentals with the traditional clothing from each respective country. So something really popular, especially in Seoul, is to rent hanbok or Korean traditional clothing outside Gyeongbokgung Palace. And when you wear hanbok, you can enter the palace for free. So,
Sweet.
yes, there are a ton of hanbok rentals all around the palace. And you choose what you want. They'll help you put it on. Some of them will also do your hair and makeup, or you can rent a photographer just depending on which store you have or which store you go to and what options they have. And then you can go to the palace and it's huge. You could walk around for an hour or two and not even see everything. But I went with one of my friends and we wore hanbok and walked around and then we just returned it and that was that.
So you're just fitted up, strutting around in these beautiful castles and looking at all these historical things. And I'm assuming because there's so many shops and rentals all around, but they seemed pretty okay with like you, an obvious foreigner, just being like, hey, can I wear your clothes and go around and do these things? Was there ever any, I don't know, hiccup to that or people being like, maybe we shouldn't do this? Because I feel like, in my opinion, now I haven't traveled to anywhere in Asia, but that's why we're asking you. But in my opinion, if I went up and been like, hey, can I wear your clothes and take pictures of these things, that may be perceived maybe not as well or not as welcomed.
I would say definitely in obviously, like, anytime you, like, do something that's part of another culture, like, it can be, if you don't do it, like, in a respectful way, there are some negatives to it. But I think that the Korean clothing rental system, and then just the other ones that I went to, just, they care a lot about making sure that it's authentic clothing and that you understand what you're putting on and, like, to some degree, like, the history of it. And I think kind of when you have all that together, it's like a really good way for you to connect with the culture in a unique way that you couldn't always do if you traveled to Europe or you know, Spain or somewhere there, for example. I think being able to wear the clothing and kind of have that personal connection to it and, you know, a photo shoot or whatever with it, I think it gives you a deeper understanding and appreciation for an aspect of culture that people are less to think about.
So the clothing is almost an ambassadorial vessel for their culture and for maybe showing themselves and expressing themselves, like, hey, come wear our stuff and know about this, and we'll teach you how to know about this. I think that that's a really cool thing. Again, in other places, I don't know how well that would fly wearing that, but I think that that's a really interesting concept that they have of this is a positive piece of tourism promotion that we're doing, saying wear the clothes, come look your best, come look like us in your best, and have fun with it. I'm assuming you guys had a lot of fun. Your pictures on Instagram look great. You went to a lot of places and you were wearing some really intricate and awesome looking traditional clothing from just wherever you were.
Yeah, I did clothing rental in Vietnam. I did it in Thailand, and obviously I did it in Korea. And it was really unique, but cool every single time, and just being able to learn about and see how other cultures have kind of developed, especially when you're in, like, the same region. So, like, Southeast Asia, I think people could think their cultures or their clothing, language, and everything is really similar. But I think when you take the time to kind of break down and learn those differences, even if it's just clothing, you can kind of have a deeper appreciation for what makes the cultures different.
So it really helped you focus in on this specific aspect of Koreanness. Obviously, you went and did it in other Southeast Asian countries, and again, we'll get to those in a minute. But focusing in on the Koreanness of it all and the Koreanness of that particular experience, that is a really cool way of going about stuff. And who knows, if I'm ever in Seoul in South Korea, things like that, I may have to rock up in that clothing and see what that's all about. I want to keep us in Korea for a little bit, continuing on. So you're an exchange student, direct exchange. You've got your people and you're kind of moving around with relative easiness. But at the same time, I assume that there were some challenges, that there were maybe some low points in your stay there, maybe some anxieties. What were some of those that you have and how did you work through them?
I think that I got really lucky in kind of avoiding some of what exchange students or study abroad students would have struggles with, just because I was able to find a really good group of friends who were able to support me basically right after I got there. And that definitely helped dealing with, you know, some of the isolation or missing my family and my friends back home that I definitely could have felt and, you know, did feel to an extent, especially as the months kept passing and my sister had her birthday, my cousin got married, and there were, you know, things that I was missing. But I definitely think that, you know, technology is a great thing. And, you know, being able to use WhatsApp to call my parents or FaceTime my friends definitely helped. If I was really missing them, then I knew they were only one phone call away. And just being able to talk to them, even if it was only 10 minutes or an hour if we had the time, that was a really nice thing.
That is nice that we kind of live in the world where you're able to do that. And I think for a lot of people who may be listening who are worried about missing certain events, big family events, or just missing their family, that people really are one call away, especially when you use WhatsApp. I'm glad you said WhatsApp. I'm going to use a moment to plug WhatsApp. So if you are planning on studying abroad, you just need to do this now. You need to get WhatsApp, because WhatsApp is the main international communication for pretty much everywhere else. Super easy, super feasible. I really love using WhatsApp. I've been using WhatsApp for years. I try to force all my friends onto WhatsApp because I do like it better. But if you are thinking of traveling abroad, one of the first steps is getting WhatsApp, because it will be a lot lighter on your phone bill and make communication a lot easier. But to go back to the globalness of it all. So just how far studying abroad has come in the last 15 years and being abroad. I remember when I was 5. I was like 5 years old. So this is 15 years ago. And my dad went to India for a 3.5 week study something program with the University of Missouri. And we just didn't really get to hear from him for 3 weeks because at the time, Skype was the only thing we had, and the Indian Wi-Fi infrastructure. I mean, he was in Western hotels and all the kind of stuff, but we talked to him, I think, once, like just could see his face, talk to him once. And it felt like forever as a 5-year-old before my dad came back. He was gone, had to learn to live without that. But now when we're in 2025, 15 years later, if you're ever feeling lonely or things like that, you really just need to know that you can pick up the phone and that people are going to be right there. But I think, too, to what you said, if you meet people and you put yourself out there to meet people, you're going to get so caught up in having so much fun that you're not even going to remember to be homesick. And
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a pretty big extrovert. And so for me, I know that's easy for me to say, but I should hope that you share the opinion, too, where if you just get yourself involved and just start getting moving around and focusing on the fact that you can still explore in such these beautiful new places, you really don't have time to be homesick.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime you're able to meet people and spend time with people in the country you're studying abroad in, yes, you'll still like miss your family, but you'll also have that support system, so you're able to be doing things with the people in the moment and not just always missing about other moments that aren't where you are.
And then also in the same moment be like, yo, mom, something, I accidentally delivered it to our house. Can you just like hold it on for 3 months and then I'll be back and I'll get it. Let's transition out of Korea because you did some traveling outside of Korea.
I did.
While you were there. Talk to us about that. What was that like?
So after my semester was done, I spent about 3 weeks in Southeast Asia. I went to Vietnam and Thailand. And I did 4 cities in Vietnam and then 3 cities in Thailand before coming home.
Break down each of them. Talk about it.
Yeah, so I went from Seoul to Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam, and I spent a few days there. And then I went to Da Nang and a day trip to Hue from there, and then ended it in Ho Chi Minh. And then from there, I went to Phi Phi Islands in Thailand, and then Krabi, Bangkok, and home. And something that was really, really nice about Vietnam is that 2 of my friends are Vietnamese German, and one of them was near Hanoi visiting his family while I was there. We met at Korea University through the exchange program, and so in Hanoi, he was able to show my friend and I around for 2 days. And then in Da Nang, there was a group of Korea University students who were just there for travel. So I was there with 6 or 7 people that I just spent a semester with. And just those 2 cities and having, a continuation of my time in Korea, but then bringing it to Vietnam and then having my friends be able to help translate into Vietnamese, teach us about the culture, what foods they would recommend, good restaurants and whatnot was a really cool experience.
What were some of the main differences between South Korea and Seoul and Vietnam that you saw?
I would say that Vietnam is very unwesternized, especially when you compare it to South Korea. I gave this example to my tattoo artist while I was at my appointment, but I think that Seoul really reminded me of New York to an extent, just with how many people there were, how many different languages you could hear being spoken, like a pretty big international crowd. And then transitioned to Hanoi, where there was less tourists. You didn't see as much English. There was a lot of Vietnamese being spoken. I think that was just a really cool experience to see another city and culture that kind of was away from that Western influence.
And I've heard that Vietnam is just absolutely beautiful, but also really cheap too. Was that your experience as well?
Yeah, it's definitely a privilege to be able to travel with the American dollar, just of how far it can go, especially in Southeast Asia and other Asian countries. It was, for me, very cost affordable to be in Vietnam. I could get a coffee for the equivalent of $2 or $3 US, where here, if I went to Java House, I'd be spending upwards of $10 on a drink. Whereas, in Vietnam, that'd be three or four coffees for me. So yeah, that was definitely something that impacted me and I think is a really big privilege of traveling as an American.
In terms of Asian food, I am a huge Vietnamese food guy, mostly because where I grew up, we had an awesome family-run Vietnamese joint. Shout out to Pho Quan. How was the Vietnamese food?
It was amazing. I still think about a bowl of chicken pho that I had and miss it every day because it's one of the most delicious things I've had in my life. But then, like I said, my friends were able to show me to some cool dessert places, places that sold coconuts that just had a hole in it so you could drink the coconut water. Banh mi, the like, croissant with the different fillings, that was really good. So it was really cool being able to travel with my friends and have them be able to recommend different foods and stuff. And then when we were in Hue, they're known for this spicy noodle soup type dish. And my friend made sure that we ate it and we tried it. And it was also really delicious.
So food touring really even is just all you need if it's going to be that good north to south and if it's that cheap too. Let's move us to Thailand. Let's talk about Thailand. What was Thailand like? Start us with the food.
Thai food was also really good. I think Thai flavors in Iowa City, shout out to them. They're really authentic. That was the only experience I had with Thai food prior to going. And in my opinion, I think they tasted the same or really, really similar. So that restaurant in Iowa City is amazing. But then the food in Thailand was also really good. Kind of same with Vietnam in that it was a lot cheaper for Americans to be able to travel and purchase food and whatnot there. Also really good. I love pad Thai. I love mango sticky rice, and I ate that almost every single day, even though I think I have a mango allergy that I did discover.
That's okay. You're here now, aren't you?
It's not life-threatening, so I'll keep enjoying the mango sticky rice.
So now that we've gone through each of the foods of all the countries that you've been to, big Southeast Asian food and Asian food fan in general, after getting the authentic thing, what is the official ranking? 1 through 3, who's got it?
Of the traveling that I did, I really would Thai, Vietnamese, and I guess Thai probably makes it confusing, but I would say that Korean and Vietnamese food were on par. They were both so amazing. And Thai food, also good, but I just think Vietnamese and Korean cuisine was just so amazing. I would have to have those two at the top.
But you can't miss with any of the 3 of them when it comes authentically. They're all just equal level that good.
You will eat well in whatever country or city you went to, but I ate especially well in Vietnam and Korea.
Oh, man. That sounds like an absolute blast. I got to do a food tour out there sometime. Really got to Anthony Bourdain it. But going back to Thailand, what was your experience like in Thailand? I know Thailand is a little bit more touristy than, say, Vietnam and other parts of Southeast Asia. Did you feel that or experience that at all, or did you just have a good time around in Thailand?
I had a great time in Thailand. The Phi Phi Islands were really cool because the Thai government puts a lot of money into preserving it just because it's really popular for tourists. So, it could suffer damages because of that, but they do a really good job at collecting like a tourist fee and tourist taxes to then reinvest into the islands to make sure they remain beautiful for more and more people to come and see. So that was really cool. It was my first time scuba diving or snorkeling, not scuba diving, but first time snorkeling. And that was a really cool experience. The water was really blue. It was so pretty. And we had an amazing tour guide who was showing us around to different places. I was on what's called Monkey's Cove, and I was able to see these monkeys that were just on the beach a little distance away from me. Thank God it lives up
to the name.
Yeah, those were really cute, and we didn't see them, but my tour guide was able to show us pictures of how there's sharks and whatnot in the area.
Oh, no.
But apparently safe to swim with, and we didn't see them. But that it would have been maybe a little scary, but kind of cool. But not on this trip did I get to see them.
Safe to swim with. That's activating some old, living in the Midwest childhood fears of sharks of mine. Swimming with sharks, pass. Big time pass. I'm okay. But that is cool that they have this really well preserved place of like, here's all the monkeys. Here's some sharks you can swim with. Have fun. Look at these beautiful beaches. Did any of these countries, and I know it's kind of unfair to maybe rank them since you were living in Korea for so long, but are there any of these countries that maybe you want to go back to where you might say, oh, this experience like killed it above all the other ones?
I've talked with my roommate about this who did traveling with me in Southeast Asia, but I think I'm counting down the days until I can go back to Vietnam. Like I said, I just had a really good time there and was only there for 10 days and was able to spend time in 3 cities, then a day trip to a fourth. But there's still a lot of things in those cities that I didn't get to do, but then other cities, especially more in the north of Vietnam. So I definitely would want to go back and spend some time there. And same thing with Thailand. I didn't get to go to Chiang Mai, and I know how amazing that would be. So I've been, but I do want to go back and do another Southeast Asia tour eventually.
The big Leila Assadi Southeast Asian return tour
Coming
will
soon, hopefully.
happen. It will happen. You and I have talked about this before, but I want you to just put this out here about your crazy traveling story and how this is an example of whenever you go places, there's truly angels everywhere.
Yes.
But also maybe be a little bit better with time management. So I'm gonna let you tell this story, but it's a funny one, and it's an important one for context and how things might end out in your future study abroad endeavors.
So just for a little bit of preface, I did not tell my mom or parents this story until I was back and they picked me up in Chicago, because I knew that it was not a story my mom was going to like.
Number one
over
rule
the
of studying
phone.
abroad, you never tell the parents or the school anything until after it happens.
Get back and then you can share the stories, but get back safely first. But yeah, so I was in Bangkok and I was with one of my friends from Iowa, but then one of my friends from study abroad also came to spend a few days with us before he went back to his home country. And we were thinking about what to do with our last few days. And there were 2 options. There's the old capital of Thailand, which was about an hour north of Bangkok, and a national park, which is about 2 to 2.5 hours northeast of Bangkok. And I had the bright idea of suggesting we do both in one day, because we were originally going to do one and scrap the other. But in my mind, it made sense to go an hour north to go to the old capital, and then an hour and a half west to go to, or an hour and a half east to go to the national park, and then about 3 hours to get back to Bangkok.
I mean, you never know when you're going to come back, so you might as well throw it in one day.
Exactly. And, I like having busy days and doing a lot, so I recommended it. And my friends agreed that it sounded like an okay idea. And so we woke up pretty early the next day. And there's this service called Grab, which is the equivalent of Uber in Southeast Asia. And you can order cars, but you can also order motorbikes. And we ordered a motorbike. My friend had one rented, and then we ordered one. And the 2 bikes set off to the old capital. We had a great time, ate at a restaurant there. And then we're getting ready to go to the national park. But then instead of doing a bike, we ordered a car this time. So, took a car, took the other bike to the national park, also got there. It's a really cool experience. Saw more monkeys. In Thailand, we're able to do a tour of the park. Didn't see any elephants, but it's kind of hit or miss with whether you're able to see the wild elephants or not.
Oh, man.
So, hopefully next trip. But, by the time we were done, it was around 9 p.m. and it was time to start heading back to Bangkok. And up to this moment, we hadn't had any troubles ordering a bike or a car to travel and take us somewhere. But no one was picking up the ride. And my friend and I went to go talk to the park rangers. And they were shocked. They didn't understand why we were trying to go to Bangkok, because it was impossible, as they put it.
Because, yes, why as we as foreigners want to go back to the place that has all of the places for us.
Yes. And, well, more importantly, where all of our stuff was. And because it was so late, they were like, there's nobody who will take you there. But, we thought, we're in the middle of the national park. Let's just get on our one bike that we have, the 3 of us, and we'll go 30 minutes, 45 minutes to get outside of the park towards the big city, nearest big city to where we were. And we'll try a bike there. Like maybe someone just doesn't want to come to the national park. So all 3 of us get on the bike, which isn't legal in Thailand to have 3 people on the bike. But late at night, the laws are a little more flex with that. And we drove around 30 minutes and got off the bike. And my friend opened the Grab app to try to reorder one. And no one was picking up again. And we waited around 20, 30 minutes just by the interstate that we needed to get on to start going to Bangkok. And just when we were losing a lot of hope, because it's almost 10 p.m. at this point, a person on a motorbike drives by and stops and asks us what's wrong. And it was a Thai man who didn't speak any English, but we used our phone and his phone to translate back and forth what our situation was. And he also was shocked and didn't understand that we wanted to go back to Bangkok tonight and really needed to because we were leaving the country soon.
Maybe this is just like, as a traveler and also an American, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that you, a very obvious foreigner, want to go back to Bangkok. Like, why would you not wanting to go back to Bangkok?
Well, it's not that we wanted to go back to Bangkok. It's we wanted to go back to Bangkok at 10 p.m. and we wanted to
foreigners be doing crazy
a driver.
things.
and he was telling us that there's no drivers because it's too far and it's too late, that we'd have to try again in the morning. And my friend said, we're desperate. Just ask him if he can drive to Bangkok, because we needed one bike because we already had the other one. And we translated and asked him, and he looked shocked for a second, but then he said, I can't take you to Bangkok, but I can take you to the outskirts, the suburbs, and you can order a taxi there, and there definitely will be one to be able to take you. And mind you, this man had just gotten off of work. He translated that his job is like rescuing people, so kind of like a firefighter or like ambulance service type job. And
so just another day at the office at this point.
Here he was off the shift, and then suddenly he was clocked back in to help these 3 foreigners. But my friend got on the back of his bike, I was on the back of my other friend's bike, and we went around an hour and a half to the outskirts of Bangkok, and we stopped, and my friend ordered Grab to get a taxi to get us into the city, and no one was picking it up again.
Oh no.
And we didn't know what to do. We're on the side of the interstate needing a taxi, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere a taxi pulls off, and deja vu to 2 hours earlier, we're asking what's wrong, and the motorbike driver and the taxi driver start talking in Thai to explain the situation, which the taxi driver found very funny, that we were stranded in the national park and all of a sudden we're...
And that you wanted to go to Bangkok?
And
why?
We wanted to go to Bangkok.
Again, why is this a surprise?
It's just so far from where we were that we should have stayed at the national park at a hotel or something, I guess. But we translated what was wrong, and we didn't have money because obviously, the motorbike driver had said he would do this for free, but obviously we had the means to pay him, but we didn't have cash. So my friend goes with him to the nearest ATM to withdraw money, and we sit and translate with the taxi driver, who we are, what we're doing, where we're going. And then they come back with the money. We pay the motorbike driver, who now has to drive an hour and a half back to his house. And my friend gets in the taxi car. I get on the motorbike, and we go to Bangkok, and we make it back after 1 a.m. After a very long ordeal that we probably shouldn't have made it back to Bangkok from. We made it back from the kindness of 2 strangers who helped 3 foreigners.
And you know what? Angels exist in all places, most specifically in the outskirts of Bangkok, waiting to help foreigners. But you must ask, why are you going to Bangkok first? Those kinds of experiences in studying abroad, I think, are the unplanned ones that just, you're like, how, man? What is going on? And then you get to recount them in ways like this. Those are some of the most fun, the most purest experiences, and really a part of just going around and being like that. Now, as a prospective study abroad student, you don't have to put yourself in these positions,
no, you do
but
not.
Not all hope is lost if something like this happens. Like, you found genuine good people who wanted to help you. You had means to be able to get around. You weren't totally destitute in some park out in the middle of Thailand. But that's a good anecdote to have, and it's, I don't know, something to tell your grandkids in the future. Yes. I want to keep us moving here just a little bit. What is your biggest advice that you have to people either about to do a direct exchange or who are wanting to study in Korea?
So just some overall advice I would have for anyone who's either wanting to do a direct exchange or just do a study abroad in general. I think that something really good you can do to prepare in going is doing any amount of language learning or culture learning, just so when you go there, you kind of have some idea of what you can expect. I think that will definitely help in kind of learning about cultural differences or some culture shock you may experience in wherever you're going. I think having that background knowledge and semi-experience in what the culture is going to be like will definitely help you. And then something that I tried to do is, I know earlier we were praising technology and helping keep people connected and talking and dealing with homesickness. But on the flip side, I think something really important with study abroad is to kind of get off social media, which maybe I'm a hypocrite because I posted on Instagram way too much during this trip.
You gotta let the haters know.
I had, and the world knew that I was in Korea. But in studying abroad, you're living in another country. It's not like tourism or just traveling where you're there for, like I was in Thailand and Vietnam. I was only there for 10 days, hopping to a bunch of different cities. In Korea or in any study abroad program you do, you're living in that country. So I think it's really important to not just go on TikTok or Instagram or other people's blog posts to see like where they went and that experience, and just like get off social media and walk around and choose a restaurant or a cafe or something like that, because I think that's where you'll find the coolest places that have unique menu items and whatnot. But social media is really nice for popular tourist attractions or finding things like that. But I think because you're living in that country, it's really nice to kind of get off it and take your own time to explore around and see what may be interesting in the neighborhood you're living in, the town where your university or wherever you're studying is, or just, around the country.
It's about living in the moment, being present, and the little things, is what you're saying.
Yes.
But you also want to be competent about where you are and understand that for sure. And I think that that's really, really good advice, not only for Korea, because it's not all just K-pop, K-culture, all that kind of stuff. It's deeper. There's levels to this, but just when you're going in general. So I want to ask, because I asked this of everybody, what is one song that you think defined your study abroad experience? You hear it and you go, I'm back in this place in Korea. I'm back in this place in Vietnam or Thailand. What is it?
I don't think I've ever thought about that question. I mean, not to be like stereotypical, but I think anytime I hear a K-pop song now, especially a really popular one, it kind of takes me back to the street I was living on, because there's a bar right outside my Goshiwon that played K-pop music into the very early hours of the morning, sometimes interrupting my sleep with it. And, in the moment, I was like, oh, can't they just turn it off? Like, I just want to sleep. But I think now when I hear it, I just think back to, like, the street I was living on. And it kind of just takes me back to, like, my neighborhood and the nicer aspects of it. Maybe not the loud bar music, but now when I hear certain K-pop songs, I'll be like, oh, that song kept me up at 2 a.m. in Korea.
I was going to say, you need those soothing Jungkook vocals to just put you in that sleep rhythm. They Stockholm syndromed you into that. Mm-hmm. Well, I thank you for sharing that. I was hoping for maybe a more specific song, but that's okay. It's a whole culture. It's a whole ideal, and you have your own funny story to deal with that. So we're reaching the end here, but I want to let you and give you the opportunity to, again, talk about what's going on with you now, plug some of your different organizations, what is happening in Leila Assadi's world right now, and what does she want the people to know?
I saw this on, I was just talking about getting off social media recently, but I was on TikTok and I saw something about how, like, once you travel or once you do one country, it's kind of like a travel bug and you just want to keep going. So I did just buy a plane ticket to Germany. I'm going to do a reunion with some of my study abroad friends there. Study abroad crossover episode. Yes. We love it, man. And, my Instagram will once again be active for this traveling. And then I'm also doing London with one of my study abroad friends this winter, applying for Tippy's Singapore 2-week summer program to do another study abroad through the University of Iowa. And then overall, studying for the LSAT next semester. Oh, my goodness. A little bit of a turn away from fun travel stories, but another big thing. And Ethics Bowl at the University of Iowa. You can follow us on Instagram. Tippy Global, you can follow us on Instagram. Global Ties Iowa, where I work, you can follow us on Instagram. I do communications and social media work for all three. So if there's a post, it's a 95% chance that it was me posting it. She is truly becoming a woman about to take on the world with that. You are doing a lot of great stuff here at the university. Your next travels really excite me, especially Singapore. Yeah. Singapore sounds awesome and an amazing opportunity. And if you guys are interested in studying in Korea or maybe getting involved in Ethics Bowl or talking about direct exchange stuff, you will be able to contact Leila, get all of that. But also, as always, talk to the Study Abroad office. They have all the resources there that you can possibly imagine. They will walk you through this, not to use Leila as a bad example, but her kind of going alone through a lot of this stuff is a very unorthodox and somewhat irregular example, but you will have all the help
that you will want and need and can guide you through that. So Leila, I have had a really great time discussing Korea, discussing your travels and your experiences, and I thank you so much for sharing them. We will hope to hear from you again in the future. But in the meantime, thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you wherever and whenever in the world next. Thanks for listening.